The galaxy was a vast and varied place, containing millions of settled worlds, each with their own unique biospheres. Galactic-scale armies like the Grand Army of the Republic could expect to fight in a huge variety of environments, many of which required specialized equipment. In the case of the GAR, the Kaminoans trained specialized clone units for specific environment-based roles. These specialized clones were granted their own unique equipment sets, and the Kaminoans hoped they would round out the Grand Army, enabling it to fight anywhere in the galaxy. But how much were these specialized clone units actually used? In this video, we're going to be answering that question. This video is sponsored by Opinion Outpost. Everyone likes cash, and Opinion Outpost allows you to earn a nice bit of extra cash in one of the most chill ways possible. You literally get paid just for sharing your opinion on a variety of topics, and having played around with it myself, I found that I can convert my earnings directly to my PayPal account, or even get an Amazon gift card if I want to get myself another Padme plushie. So if you want to be earning a bit of easy cash while you're watching Star Wars Episode 3 for the 5th time this year, make sure you click that link in the description below. Thank you to Opinion Outpost once again for sponsoring this video. Now, you might be scratching your heads right now, wondering why we're even asking this question. After all, we saw Cold Weather Troopers and Jungle Troopers in Revenge of the Sith, as well as Desert Troopers, Scuba Troopers, and more in the Clone Wars. That's plenty of action, right? Well, not necessarily. It's true that we've seen the equipment used by the troopers a fair bit, but the clones using that gear weren't necessarily environment-specialized clones. For example, the Jungle Scouts seen in the Battle of Kashyyyk were largely from the 41st Elite Corps and Phase unit, neither of which were actually composed of Jungle Troopers. Those scouts were just regular clones in different kits. We can confirm this to be the case for quite a few supposed appearances of specialized clone units. All of the specialized clones, with the exception of pilots that were seen in Revenge of the Sith, were all rank and files. Most of the specialists that appeared in the Clone Wars fall into a similar category, with the possible exception of Commander Monk and his Scuba Troopers. This isn't just a case of reg units switching gear for niche missions either. In the Second Battle of Geonosis, one of the largest battles of the war, the 7th Sky Corps adopted Desert Trooper armor instead of their usual kits. Desert troops surely would have been available for such a crucial battle, so what gives? It should be noted first and foremost that the answer wasn't just a lack of specialized units. The Grand Army of the Republic had a lot of clone variants, with some of the more niche ones being Flame Troopers, Covert Ops, Shadow Troopers, and even Bomb Squad Troopers. If there was an environment that clones could conceivably fight in, you could bet a fair few credits that the Kaminoans had a few units of specialists trained to fight in it. To get an idea of what exactly we're talking about here, let's have a quick rundown of some of these specialist classes. One of the most well-known clone variants were the clone Scuba Troopers, which, as their name suggests, were equipped and trained for underwater combat. Also known as clone Subtroopers, these clones wore hydrodynamic, airtight armor which featured flippers and large reserves of oxygen for use during extended periods of underwater combat. Presumably, the blaster weapons they carried were also specially modified to work underwater. These clones really were a breed apart, as they spent most of their training time not in Tipoca City's clone factories, but in the sea beneath them, becoming isolated from the regs as a result. Scuba Troopers were trained with a radically different approach to combat, as was necessary for soldiers intended to fight underwater. The three-dimensional nature of underwater combat, in particular, would have been a massive change from the standard GAR tactics, at the very least. As we discussed in a fairly recent video, there were also clone aerial troopers and paratroopers who were trained in similarly unique combat tactics for almost the same opposite environment. Aerial troopers fought, as you might expect, in the air, using jetpacks to get the drop on, flank, or otherwise outmaneuver enemy units. Their gear sets weren't nearly as unique as the Scuba Troopers, but they still required enough special training that it wasn't considered enough to teach all the regs how to use jetpacks and call it a day. There were entire units of these specialists, including the 7th Sky Corps, the unit led by Commander Cody. Cold Assault Clone Troopers were the predecessors of the Imperial Snow Trooper. Obviously, they were trained and equipped for operation in extremely cold climates, generally ice worlds like Hoth and Auto Plutonia, which experienced regular sub-zero temperatures. This, too, required training specialization and unique equipment, as snow and ice presented hazards that regs wouldn't have been prepared to deal with during combat. However, Cold Assault Trooper training was apparently intuitive enough for regs to don cold weather gear as opposed to calling in a dedicated cold assault unit. In the Battle of Auto Plutonia, for example, the 501st Legion fought in cold assault armor just fine, despite not having been specialized for those sorts of missions. The Grand Army of the Republic had all manner of specialized equipment for clone scout troopers, which was usually worn by environmentally focused clone units. Clones specially trained for jungle warfare or desert warfare had their own variants of the standard scout trooper set, which evolved from ARF trooper armor. These environments also required special training to fight in, but yet again, it seemed the regs did just fine, simply borrowing the scout unit's gear. Hell, the clones even seemed to fight well in those sorts of environments even without the special armor, as the 501st Legion proved in the Second Battle of Geonosis. There were specialists who, as far as we know, never had to lend out their gear to the regs, however. These include Clone Special Operations Troopers, who had unique armor sets and were notable for their roles in combat above Christosis and on Geonosis. Very little is known about these clones, other than that their helmets were even more advanced than standard clone helmets, and they very rarely made appearances on the battlefield, even during the height of the Clone Wars. To answer the title question, it would appear that these specialized clones didn't see much action. In most battles of the Clone Wars, regular clones just donned special sets of armor before going out into whatever battlefield they were being dropped onto and called it a day. That wasn't even always the case either. We have many examples of regular clones not even bothering with environment-specific armor and doing just fine anyways. It seems then that the Kaminoans were wrong about the GAR needing specialists for everything. Clearly, the regs had been trained well enough to handle that. But what about that specialized training? Well, allow us to remind you of a quick passage from the Journal of the 501st Legion. As the Clone Wars progressed, more and more ground-based legions found themselves pressed into space combat, including the fighting forces of the 501st. For months, every hour of our downtime was spent in the simulator preparing for the time we would face our enemies from the cockpit of a 170. In an older video, we talked about how this was a response to the Republic Starfighter Corps' pilot shortage. Due to the nature of space combat in the Clone Wars, clone pilots were dying faster than the Kaminoans could ship out new ones. Additionally, the sheer numbers of vulture droids the Confederacy was fielding meant that those pilots who remained were always badly outnumbered. To compensate, the Republic gave piloting crash courses to infantry clones and used them to beef up the Starfighter Corps' ranks, making the job easier for clone pilots all over the galaxy. It's likely that something similar happened here. Likely, the Kaminoans only produced these specialized clone troopers in relatively small numbers, failing to foresee the truly colossal scale of the Clone Wars. The Grand Army of the Republic was stretched thin for almost the entire conflict, fighting on more than 100 planets at any given time. The Republic would have run out of specialists fast, and after the first few months of the war, they would have had to start using them sparingly, deploying them only in the most extreme environments. Meanwhile, the solution of giving regs crash courses and special gear came about. It's unknown when this trend started, but it caught on quickly. With the advent of Phase 2 armor, it became common to the point where actual specialist clones just faded into the background, even as the use of specialized equipment and tactics increased dramatically. Most of them were simply unnecessary. The only clone specialists that absolutely had to be called in every time there was a battle in their specific environment were the Scuba Troopers, because, after all, underwater combat was pretty much a whole world away from what most clones were used to. So that's our look at environmentally specialized clone troopers and why they saw next to no use. But what do you think? Are there any clone specialists you'd like to hear more about? Let us know your thoughts and more in the comment section below. And just before you click on Generation Tech's How to Cook an Ewok Steak video, make sure you check out our GGN, our Geetsly's Gaming Network, which has just opened its Clone Wars role-playing server. Guys, this is a really great server, really great staff behind it as well, and you will have a lot of fun with it. So all the links and information for that is in the description. And if you want to check out our new channel called The Braved, which goes through all eras of history to find some of the most badass individuals from these eras, that link is also in the description below, as well as our Relax Jack music channel, where you can find the music we use here on most of our videos. That link is also in the description below. And if you want to join a behind the scenes Discord and get access to some exclusive posts, consider donating to our Patreon. And if you just want to join our wider community, join us on our Discord. All of these are in the description below. Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.